On today's Question of Faith, what was the highlight of the National Eucharistic Congress? Hey everybody, this is Question of Faith. I am Deacon Mike. I'm the Young Adult Ministry Director here in the Diocese of Cleveland.
And I'm Father Damian Ference, the Vicar for Evangelization.
And I'm Christy Cabanis, Director for Missionary Discipleship.
Are you tired, y'all?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm still tired.
Doesn't begin to say how tired I am. My little Fitbit got a workout.
Oh yeah? What did you log your miles or your steps or what?
Steps.
What do you normally get and what did you get there?
Normally I've been walking. I've been doing like a 3-mile walk almost every day. So it's not too much for me, but usually I'm somewhere around 11,000 steps. Okay. And my high for this one was 19,000.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah, that was the procession day.
Oh, yeah.
And the day before that was 17,000. So
I was not that high. I was surprised at how low my numbers were whenever I got back.
But most of the other days I was somewhere around 13,000, which is fairly normal for me. So. Yeah.
And a lot of it wasn't just walking; it was just the length of the days and the intensity of the days.
Yes,
so we
indeed.
did a podcast before we left on what we were looking forward to, and now we're able to unpack. And it outdid all my expectations. I will say that. And Christy, it's great to have you on. You've become the folk hero of the diocese because she was really. I mean, it took a team effort, but you really were kind of the captain of the team, Indeed. At least on the road, and the communications person and the one who was sending all the emails and getting back. So people knew your name, but it took a couple days for them to put your name to your face. And then when they did, it was, hoorah, hooray, there she is, our folk hero, the one who gets us everywhere we want to go without losing her temper.
QB Christy.
Yeah, so... Well, who wants to what do you want? I mean, you opened it with what's the highlight? I think there's many highlights. So let's do you have top 3?
I've got top 3.
Go on. Let's start.
So the last night of the on the main stage, I would say, was definitely the highlight for me. I really, really loved adoration that night. I had a pretty profound experience of the Eucharist that night for myself. Bishop Barron, can't go wrong. And I really thought Gloria Purvis was the star that night. I thought she really did a nice job of talking about unity, getting everybody together, talking about how we have to be in unity with the Pope. Mm-hmm. I really, really enjoyed her talk. That was I thought that was the best talk of all of them for me.
I liked in her talk that she talked about what brings us together, and she also gave the opposite, what pulls us apart, and things we need to. That's a good pedagogy, you know. Yep. What works, what doesn't work.
Yeah.
So that's highlight 1. You want me to do all 3 of mine, or do you want?
No, we could all share one.
Yeah,
we could just go around.
One. Yeah.
I mean, I'll say that too. That the Saturday night with Matt Maher was there and sang for us. I mean, that was super powerful. I was so excited. That was because we were getting to the close of everything. For me, it was a night that I could actually lean into everything that was happening. And so I love that. And I took a couple of times a video shot of, it was amazing how many people were there. But on top of that, the ages and the Diocese of Cleveland, good job, FDU, contributed to the fact that we had every age there. We had littles, we had 2 babies, 1 and 3 years old. We had elementary age kids, all the way up to senior citizens of all kinds of ages. And it just, for me, it was this huge unifying moment of, it doesn't matter how old you are or what your state in life is. We all come together around the Lord, and He brings us together. It was so beautiful. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I even tweeted on the way home, in terms of our diocesan delegation, one of the things that we were very much trying to do and did was make sure that everyone in our diocese was represented. So we did have young, who was the youngest on the trip? Was
one-year-old little Donatelli baby. Yeah.
And I don't know how old the oldest was, but I'd say probably 70s or 80s, at least 70s. I know that for sure. We had laity, we had religious, we had clergy, we had Asian, Black, Hispanic, white. We had old and we had young, we had men, we had women, and people from Wayne Ashland, Medina. We had people so that's more of our rural area. We had people from the suburbs. We had people from the city. It looked like us.
Yes.
And I liked that very much. So that was cool. Yeah. I would say, too, my highlight, it really did culminate. And for those who weren't there, every night we gathered in the oil can stadium, Standard Oil or whatever it's called.
Lucas Oil.
Lucas Oil Stadium, which holds regularly 70-some thousand. Taylor Swift's going to be playing there, I think, in a couple months. But there were 50,000 of us that gathered there every night, and there was about 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours of programming. So they had 3 hosts. Mm-hmm. It was Father Josh, Sister Miriam, and what was her name?
Alvarado.
Monse.
Who's like the CEO of EWTN.
Yeah, and they hosted, and then different speakers came out, and there was different music every night, and then some adoration each night. And so on the last night, it was Gloria Purvis, it was Bishop Barron, it was Matt Maher. There was someone else that was there too.
Jonathan Rumi.
Jesus
himself was there?
There it is. Okay, so here's my that last night was my highlight. When I was first ordained, I was sent to your home parish, St. Mary in Hudson, and because I had never worked with Life Team before, I had to go to Arizona to be trained to learn about Life Team. And the guy who was playing music that weekend at St. Tim's in Arizona was a young man named Matt Maher. He's only 2 years older than me, so I was 26, 27 at the time. He would have been 29. And I was like, this guy's pretty cool, and I like his music. And what I always have liked about Matt is he knows the tradition well, he knows liturgy well, and he also knows music well, and he can lead well, and he knows it's not about performance. He said that this is not a concert, this is praise and worship. And he was able to bring us in and play the right music at the right time in the right way. Like, he's a master of his craft, and was able to bring us in even after the speakers coming in and out and know the kind of things to play to penetrate the heart. And Johnny Hawkins and I went to Deacon John Hawkins. We went to a CUA reunion that night right after our dinner on another side of town. We scootered there. And then by the time we got back, there were no seats. So we were way up in the crow's nest. I think we were section 436, and it was just the two of us. Let's just sit here. But man, I felt like it was easier for me to get into it, and tears, and I was in, man. I was locked in. And then when Rumi came out, first of all, he looks like a rock star with the long hair. I mean, he looks like Jesus.
And with all the white.
White. Like white T-shirt.
Like John Lennon from the White Album. You know
with the Flannery O'Connor quote on his shirt.
White jeans, white belt, and then, the Flannery O'Connor shirt. If it's a symbol, to hell with it. And then my phone lit up like, boo, 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 boo. That was, it all came together. So that too, I mean, we share that highlight. Saturday night was awesome.
It's funny, I was up pretty high too. Deacon Mark Temecco and my classmate and I,
my classmate too.
Your classmate also, yes.
Yes, but more importantly yours.
We decided to go up high that night because we had about enough of people after the procession, which will be my second highlight I'll talk about later. But we were like, we just need to spread out and just be quiet and have a nice night. And so we went all the way up as far as we can go, and we were right in front of the stage, but up high, on that far side. And that was great. It was really, really nice. It was kind of solemn, and I think that's what really got us into it. So it was cool. I think Deacon Mark and I both said at the end of the night that it was kind of nice, just the two of us being together as classmates and just kind of enjoying some solitude for a little bit, and then other people kind of came in and added to it instead of subtracted from it. So it was great. Yeah.
Let me say a word really quick about Deacon Mark Temecco. So he is my classmate from Holy Name. We graduated in 1994 together.
New job.
And he just took the new job of, I think it's Mission and Identity at Holy Name, which is in addition to what campus ministry used to be. So when I was there, we had a full-time priest, Father Krisner. I wouldn't be a priest without him. After the diocese pulled him out and made him pastor of St. Colette's, they never put another priest in there. And so Mary Wallace has been doing an outstanding job as campus minister. But they decided they needed even more than that. So Mary's going to stay on in theology, but what they wanted was someone not only to minister to the needs of the students, but the staff and faculty. Yeah. And so Mark has been a high school teacher for how many years?
Oh, God, yeah.
His children are students at Holy Name.
Correct.
And this position opened up, and he's a newly ordained deacon. So to have a deacon in there is awesome. Not to mention now Father Joe Menkhaus has been assigned the chaplain. So Bishop has given chaplains to all 5 of his diocesan high schools. And since I'm alumnus of Holy Name, I'm so thrilled that he's going to be there. Not to mention that there were some pictures that were posted with Holy Name students already getting to know him. So I have great hopes for Holy Name High School.
Okay, cool story. I hope Mark doesn't mind me telling this, but this is a cool story that he told me while we were there. So he started it there, and he he's looking through this new office, which used to be Father Krisner's like apartment, right? He used to live there. And so he's going through different closets and things like that, and he found this old walking stick in a closet. And it had Father Krisner's name engraved on it, or carved into it, I guess is what I mean to say. And he was like, oh, this is interesting. And it was like kind of hanging on the wall in a closet. He goes, well, why is this back in this closet? This is kind of cool. We should put this somewhere else. And so he kind of mounted it somewhere in the closet, like just outside the closet, and then he left it there. And then he came back, like, a couple days later, and he opens this drawer, and because he's still like cleaning up. Mark's very organized, right? So he's organizing the whole office. He pulls open this drawer. He finds another walking stick, and he's like, "Huh, this is interesting. Oh, carved in the exact same place. No one has been in that room since he left it." Okay, he turns around, goes back to the other side where he had that walking stick hanging up, and it's no longer there. And it was now in this drawer. And he's like, he confirmed no one's been in the room.
That's crazy.
So he was like, so he felt like that was Father Krisner's way of saying welcome.
Huh.
And so he said he's going to use the walking stick now as like a prop for different things to sort of honor his predecessor. But then also, there's certainly a lot of things that you could use a walking stick to symbolize.
Sure.
So that would be really good.
Cool.
So, that's great.
Yeah, so cool story. I know how close you were with Father Krisner.
Yeah, he's
also.
very dear to me.
Yeah. So anyway, I think so your highlight was also the last night. Is what
Saturday, Saturday night.
Yeah.
So good. All came together.
Sure. Second one for me, the procession through the streets of Indy. It was just throngs and throngs of people everywhere, and as deacons we all walked together in it. It was actually kind of cool. There were 8 deacons in a row, and we had exactly 8 permanent deacons from the Diocese of Cleveland, so we all were able to walk together, which was kind of nice. Deacon Willie Yoho was sort of the cheerleader, and yelling out, God is great all the time, kind of thing. So that was cool. And I walked with my new deacon mentor. You get assigned a new deacon mentor. So this is kind of cool for me. I had my old deacon mentor, Deacon Chris DePenti, was my roommate. We'll talk about him in a minute. And then my new deacon mentor is Deacon Greg Leisure, who I grew quite close to during formation. So he's coming on to be my new deacon mentor. So we walked shoulder to shoulder, walking down the street. But it was kind of cool, kind of humbling to hear people say, "We love you, deacons. Bless you, deacons," as we were walking through. So it was cool.
Yeah.
Lots of folks.
Yeah, for the procession, I've told people, like, you are watching the procession happen and see how many gazillions of people are even in it. And so then you're thinking there can't be any more people, but they were packed on the sides of the street the whole way. But I think my second highlight moment was actually the opening of the entire NEC. These processions that have been coming from the corners of the United States came together, and then the Blessed Sacrament is processed in, and the crowd is just, everyone's on their knees in the stadium. It doesn't matter where you are, and the quietness and the music and the spotlighting. I mean, I've been to Lucas Oil for an NCYC, but this was, probably 3 times the amount of people that would be at that, and just that incredible moment of us all coming together. And then also the papal nuncio addressed the group that night, and his comments,
he was great,
were tremendous. I just felt this constant theme of, let's not be divided, let's unify. Isn't that what the Eucharist is about? Isn't that what Jesus is trying to do? So that those opening ceremonies, it was like that whole sense of, for me anyway, because of how much work had gone into the logistics, like, we're here, we made it, let's begin. It was beautiful.
2 things to say. One thing to say, and then I'll build off it. I watched a little clip yesterday on Instagram. David Calavita, who's from Life Teen, mentioned something that I think is worth considering. He said that was the first event he remembers that the USCCB or our American church has put on that has been high quality in everything in terms of the production. Like, no one was pulling back any like what you would expect from a secular event in terms of screens and lighting, production, it was all top tier stuff, which that matters when and he's a creative, so he's an artist, and he wants that. And I thought, yeah, that's right. I didn't notice that. I guess I didn't consider noticing it because it was there. I guess I would have noticed if it wasn't there. Because a lot of times we think, well, we can't afford that, or we can't like go for it. So I thought that was cool to mention. My second would be what I would call small Catholic world. That 50,000 people there, but running into people that I haven't seen in a long time. I met your other podcast friend, and
Sarah.
we did a podcast with your friend, and those two are actually married to each other. Yep. And it's only when I walked by and I saw, was it Jamborski?
Jarzembowski.
I should be better with that. I'm from Parma. But I saw her name. I'm like, hey, I'm friends with Christy. I said Christy Cobbin. Oh, yeah, Father Day. Okay, so we took a little selfie. That was good. I was able to connect with a couple that I married 10 years ago and do a renewal. We don't renew vows. But there's actually a ritual that you could do. So I got to connect with them and some guys I study with in Rome, and I ran into Father Dave Pavanka and a bunch of folks. Even when you're vesting, you're like, oh, hey, you're here and here. So I like that. I love being Catholic because you don't see people for a long time. Like, dude, what's up? And that was great. I love that.
Yeah, that's almost. I was going to say something about that later on, but I'll make that my third highlight. It was kind of the same for me. I was vesting for the procession, and all of a sudden I see this young man coming toward me in a cassock. He was one of my Canisius students, Andy Erdman, who's a seminarian now in Buffalo.
Nice.
And he came over and just gave me a big embrace, and it's been a while since I've seen him, and he was like, oh my God, I miss you so much. He goes, it's so good you're here. I said, Andy, you don't know how good it is to see you in that cassock. And he goes, you don't know how good it is to see you with those vestments. It was just really sweet.
That's really cool.
I really enjoyed it. And then my friend Kathleen Kozak, who I haven't seen in ages, she was the young adult person in Raleigh, North Carolina for a long time. And so she texted me and said, hey, I heard you're here. Can I see you? And I was like, oh yeah, I'm vesting over an F. Just tell me when you're there and I'll walk out. And she did and walked out. She took one look at me and I was already vested. And she goes, this is what I prayed for. I was like,
If I can share a similar experience, do you remember when Maria did the Behold retreat for daughters and mothers? And one of the women she brought in was a woman named Sam Kelly, who runs some outfit called, I forget what it's called. It's Fierce Catholic, because it's like Division I athletes and all this.
Yes.
I discovered at dinner the night before her talk that she was a big Springsteen fan. So we hit it off then. She asked me for my top 10 Springsteen songs. We shared information. She's actually going to join me and my buddy Rich to see Springsteen in Philly.
Nice.
After meeting only once. Anyway, I'm coming into the Lucas Can Oil Stadium on Friday morning, and I'm just coming around the corner, and who comes? And it's Sam Kelly. She goes, I just prayed that I would see you, and boom, same thing. And and 50,000 people run into her. And then the other person, Francine, was giving away this book to her teens on the youth council by a woman named Meg Hunter Kilmer. It was like all these random saints that you never heard of because they're kind of new. Yeah. And when I read the book, I mentioned it on Insta and I tagged her on there. And then one of my breakouts, the one you had us go to Empower, she gave the talk. I'm like, that's how I know her. And she was on fire. Yeah, and I loved what she had to say. And so after the last Mass on the way out, I ran into her and I'm like, hey, because I thanked her, I DM'd her, but I'd never met her before, but I saw those big sunglasses. I'm like, hey, so I got to, it's just nice to connect with people.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
Indeed. Yeah.
Especially when they say what you just said, like I was praying for you and then boom.
There they are. There they are. I have one that's a little bit like that too. That's a two-parter. But Saturday night after the procession, we had scheduled a dinner for all of our delegates together, all 250 that went on the trip. And our hope was that the bishops were going to be able to join us. Logistics being what they were, that was impossible. They couldn't make it. So I was super sad. And I was like, I feel like the group needs to be addressed in some kind of way. So I went to the front of the room, and everyone was talking and having a good time with each other, which was great. And I just said, good afternoon, everyone. And the room turned, and then they erupted into applause for me, which I was there, literally blown away. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, you guys, stop. But we had our comments, and I said, the bishops, unfortunately, aren't going to be able to make it, but, talk to each other and share what this experience has been for you and really, engage in this moment and open yourselves up to what's available tonight. And then that night, Bishop Malesic and Bishop Woost, after walking all of that way and everything that they had done all day, they walked out to the buses to greet all of the delegates on their buses, which was just, that was
awesome.
Yeah, they are really great shepherds, and we are so blessed to have them as our leaders. So that was a huge thing for me.
Let me say something about that dinner at the Omni, by the way, which was great. Oh, and I want to say this publicly. So when we were heading back from the procession, so I was not in the Eucharistic procession because I knew that you had arranged that dinner at the Omni, and I wanted to be part of that. So I was part of the Eucharistic procession, but I just didn't process in it. So I was there. You know what I mean? And so we were coming back, and I thought we were going to the Westin, and you and Judy had your flags. I'm like, I think we're going this way. You're like, no, we're going this way. And you two went as you knew you should. And I was so proud because that's what you're supposed to do. And a lot of times people will defer to the priest. Oh, he's the priest. He should know. You knew what you were doing. You did it. I admitted to Judy. I'm like, hey, I was wrong there. Thank you for like going with what you knew was right. And I wanted to say that publicly because I think that's really important with the staff that we have. Like, if you know something's true, say it, stand up for it, and go. Because the priests get it wrong a lot, and that's fine. So thank you for your leadership on that. And I also wanted to say that as I was in line for food that night, people were eating so much salad, and I heard people saying, I haven't had greens in 3 days, and just piling up because
that was me.
When you're eating like granola bars and fast food. It's like, oh my gosh, vegetables. And I took a whole huge piling plate of that Caesar salad without croutons. And the chicken was so good, though. Those chicken thighs.
The chicken were good.
It was a great meal. So thank you for organizing that.
Of course. Yeah.
It was funny. It was somewhat difficult to find good food at lunch, I thought. But I went out to dinner with my Paulist friends one night. They took me to dinner one night. It was great to catch up with those guys, too. And I actually texted a copy of the menu to my trainer and said, what should I eat here?
Oh, nice.
So I was doing really well. And so he found like a good enchilada meal that was very healthy, actually, and it was really tasty. So I was like, I was really happy. So he called me actually on Monday and said, I'm just looking at your food chart while you were away. He goes, you did a great job. Because this is really, really good and a hard thing to do. He said, so good job.
It is.
So I'll pat myself on the back for staying on my weight loss plan here.
I wound up at the same place 3 different times because I found a place that had good food, and I went back. You went there the last day of lunch, too.
Yep.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Really good.
The thing I wanted to say was, I'm always really interested in how other people pray. The bishop named me the new ecumenical interfaith director here, so I'll have to add that to my title at the beginning. I'll go on and on.
I only pick one.
Yeah, I'll pick one and go. Yeah, but we haven't said that on this podcast, I don't think. So
it's good to say it.
Yeah, but
you should have a new hat.
But the thing that I think I like about this is that I'm always very interested in how other people pray. And the style of prayer at this thing was very sort of evangelical, which is not how I pray, right? And so it's kind of hard for me to get into it. And then that last night, I thought Matt Mark kind of brought it back to more of the style that I'm used to being able to pray. I remember you even pointed that out. You said, Matt really knows how to do this, and I was like,
he's excellent.
Yeah, and so I was able to kind of get into it for myself there. But it's interesting to me to see how other people pray and what really moves them. And to be able to engage with that in some way,
I also wonder, because it sounds like you and I did the same thing. You were with your classmate, Deacon Mark Tomeko up high. I was with Johnny Hawkins, and there wasn't anyone else around. And I feel like more able to express myself when I'm not surrounded by a big horde of folks, to put my hands up and all. And I think I'm a little more private in my expression of prayer. Even like I pray in the bishop's chapel in our rectory on the 2nd floor every morning, and I talk like out loud. And if you walked in, you'd be like, "What is he doing?" I would never do that with anyone else around. Yeah. But I mean, I've known John since he was in high school, so I knew he was okay. And at one point, he looks to me, and I got tears rolling down my eyes, and he did too. We're like, "Yeah, this is how it is." But I guess I'm a little more private in my expression of prayer. But there was one moment that night, I don't remember what song, they were like, "You are so good." And there were about 4 or 5 women on the perimeter of the floor, and they were like, everything in their whole body was moving like full on. And I look at John and I'm like, dude, those are biblical women down there. And they had like dresses on and just it was awesome. I loved it. I was moved by that.
Yeah. At one point, I was near Father Ian Kelly, and he had his hands in the air. He's jumping, he's clapping, he's doing all kinds of things. I was like, I have never seen this side of him.
I know, yeah, in his cassock.
Yeah, I think it was just a.
I know.
I think it was
just
just
kidding.
I think it was just a clerical shirt that night.
Yeah,
but still.
yeah.
But that was kind of interesting for me to see. So yeah, I mean, it was good. You know, I thought the sessions that we went to during the morning, those were a little harder. Those were really sort of like call and response kind of things with the Deacon Oni and his wife. Oni and his wife. Yeah. So that was a little harder for me to get into, but it was. Yeah, it was the way it is.
Well, and I think some people, when they hear a talk or when they talk, they want to say a line and then repeat it back. That doesn't work for me as well. However, a big part of this experience was doing things that I'm not necessarily comfortable with and allowing the Lord to stretch me in that way. For example, at the last Mass, I usually defer the purification of the vessels to the deacon or the seminarians who are trained acolytes. And right after I receive communion, I'm walking back to my seat, and one of those beautiful nuns, Father, will you help us purify? I'm like, that's Jesus asking me. It's Our Lady. Yes, I will. And it's something that I normally would defer to someone else, but I did it, and it was good for me to do it. And I think the Lord calls us to do things that and it's not, I always purify my own vessels, but that's not something I thoroughly enjoy doing or look forward to, as some others do. But it was what I was called to do, so I did it.
Yeah, same thing for me. I got to be a Eucharistic minister in the upper deck the day before the last day, I guess. Both me and Deacon Mark did that. That was kind of fun. And then when we were bringing our Ciboria back, this nun comes over to me and she says, excuse me, Deacon, could you do the low gluten people over here, please? And I said, yeah, sure, of course, sister. And then as I would go back, she goes, please tell them that those are the low-gluten hosts so they don't confuse them. I said, of course, sister, thank you. Yeah, so it was nice.
It was also nice to see so many young religious sisters around. That's just a cool witness. And I finally saw what are they called? The handmaids. I have a friend who's a handmaid. She wasn't there. And one of them read at the last Mass. But I never saw their habits, so they look pretty cool. They kind of look like the Sisters for Life, except their scapular's black. I didn't know who they were. And then when I found out, I ran up. I'm like, do you know Kelly Lilac? I mean, Sister Katerina P. of the Holy Name of Jesus? They're like, yes. I'm like, tell her I said hello.
Great.
Anyways.
All right, so let's pick a church for this week. And we're just about going to St. Gabe's. So what do we know about St. Gabe's?
In Mentor?
Yeah.
Oh,
Concord Township, Christy. Concord Township.
Concord, that's right. But they even say St. Gabe's. I know. One thing I know is that they are an Alpha Hub Church, and if you haven't heard about Alpha, it's a program that invites people to come in and talk about all the bigger things in life, including God, but through a video series where you sit down and have dinner and are just able to kind of wonder about all of the stuff. But Rio de Janeiro and Ken Mancuso, Ken actually was with us on the trip out. They run the Alpha there, and they're known nationwide as a Catholic Alpha hub.
Nice.
Yeah.
I help out there every year for their confessions during Advent and Lent. And one of the things I like that they do is when they invite the priests out, they invite you for dinner first. So we have some fraternity and then go over to the church. And it's always a wonderful night. The church is modern. It's got a big, blocky stained glass window behind the altar. I think they did some renovations recently. Big school, nice rectory. Father Fred Pauschi's been there for a long time. I think he's about to retire, and I think there'll be a lot of changes coming there soon. But it's a beautiful parish, and I'm trying to remember who's the parochial vicar there now. I can't remember. I know who. It's Joshua Trefny, Father Joshua Trefny,
right.
who just moved up from Stowe, and so he's there. He's one of my former students. He's a really good man. He's into healing ministry and that Encounter and Peter's Shadow and all that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
nice. And so readings for the 17th Sunday in Ordinary Time. Speaking of the Eucharist, Loaves and the Fishes this week. So John's version of that. And I like that the part of it where it says that Jesus knew exactly what was going on. In John's Gospel, he's always in control. I also was thinking, with the National Eucharistic Congress ending, now we are the Eucharist that goes forth. That the loaves and the fishes will be multiplied through us as we go through to bring that to other people, bring Christ to other people.
Yeah, one of the things we didn't talk about in our recap was that final Mass and Father Chito, Cardinal
Tagle, yeah.
In his excellent homily. If you haven't seen it, maybe we could link it, but just tying all that together so we become what we receive and go out and mission the world, that was great. In terms of the missioning, I think this is why I was drawn to the second reading, which is from Ephesians. I urge you to live in a manner worthy of the call that you have received. And so what does that look like? Humility, gentleness, patience, bearing with one another through love. What does that mean? It means this is like, how would you describe how Jesus loves us? Humbly, gently, patiently, bearing with us. So that means that we who receive him in the Eucharist must show that to the world in the way that we live. So that's the manner worthy that we've received by our baptismal call and our missioning and in confirmation, which is very difficult to do. It's easier to say, "Oh, I got mine, and I'm good for the week," but to actually become what you receive and embody it, whoo.
And now, like the next line in that reading too, striving to preserve the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace, one body and one Spirit. So
and that leads into what I was thinking about too. You're called to the one hope of your call, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father. Of also like that sense that God brings us all together back again as a human family. I felt that last week constantly throughout the course of the Congress. So that's what stuck out for me. One faith, one baptism.
And the devil, Diabolo, is the one who wants to divide us, right? Yeah. Split us apart. Right. And so we're made to be one. It's one God, and we're one people, one church, this oneness. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, I have my homily for the weekend now.
There you go.
Cool.
Perfect, right? Had a great time on the bus, by the way. Thanks for organizing all the bus folks. And
my pleasure.
Yeah, and so Emily Allen and I sat together most of the time, and we just had a great time together.
The archivist for the Diocese of Cleveland, and she was going nuts several times. But hey, cool fun fact in case if anybody, this is really for the people that were on the ground there, but there was all this footage that they were running on screens throughout the entire convention center and whatnot. A lot of the black and white footage that you saw there was from Emily, from the Diocese of Cleveland, from our last.
Yep.
My cousin sent me a piece from the New York Times where they did a little coverage and used some of that footage there.
Yeah, she does a great job. So thanks, Emily.
On our bus, I had the director of Hispanic Ministry, Hortensia Rodriguez, and the director of Black Catholic Ministries, Sister Jane Nesmith. And one of the things that we did on the way out and way in was a bilingual rosary. Which was very cool. Nice. So first, third, fifth mysteries, English, second and fourth, Spanish. And it was really cool. Very cool.
That's very nice. Yeah. All right. Well, this was the National Youth Eucharistic Congress. So hopefully, not only did we have a good time, hopefully that good time will now trickle down to other folks.
And if you didn't hear anything about it or haven't seen anything, let's include some of those videos, like Father Mike Schmidt's talks, Sister Josephine's talk, Gloria's talk, Jonathan Rumi. They're all on YouTube, but they're worthy of reflection.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and if you want to hear more, we're going to have a contingent of folks that were a part of this delegation that are going to be at the fest. They're going to be sharing faith stories. They're going to be participating as greeters and whatnot. You might be able to notice them in their red Ohio shirts where the I is a monstrance.
Yeah, cool. we got a lot of play with that one too.
Mm-hmm. Yep, a lot of people coming up to me saying, "That's a cool shirt. You should sell those."
Cleveland rocks.
Yeah, they do.
Absolutely, and you rock too. And so we'll see you all next time here on Question of Faith.
Nice.